Atheism has faith. Atheism is a religion. Atheism is dogmatic. How many times have we heard this before? If we're to understand what is wrong with this argument, we have to understand why creationists would even bother trying to use this argument against atheists in a formal debate. So, why? This is the sort of argumentation that is really for the theist who doesn't have a point to make. This is the desperate grasping at straws, the very last resort, the rope of life of a theist, you could say. That they try and link atheism, the completely opposite position that they have, to their own position because they cannot deflect the criticisms that atheists have made. Now, here comes the tricky bit of the video, and the part that will cause most controversy, and also the part that I also really hate, which, as most of you would probably understand by now, is semantics. More specifically, defining what I mean when it comes to terms like atheism, faith, religion, etc. The goal of using definitions in my videos is not to prove what is or is not correct, but to show rather what is more relevant in a certain context. I will define atheism as a lack of belief in any god or gods. This includes people who do not currently worship any god or gods because they have drawn away from religion, or this also includes people who never believed in any god or gods in the first place. A religion, by definition, is something that is a collection of beliefs based on humanity, on certain values, on spiritual beliefs that are not necessarily grounded upon reality or any testable, observable evidence. So, with that in mind, we can easily say that this argument is completely debunked by saying, well, you can't have a system of a belief based on non-belief. That is a logical contradiction in and of itself. Atheism does not have any dogma. It does not have any spiritual figureheads. It does not have any deities to speak of. It does not have any rules or any sort of system of belief based on humanity or morality or things like that. The usual path people will take is to try and criticize the definition of atheism as a belief that God doesn't exist. So, with that train of logic, do we therefore say that my lack of belief in unicorns is somehow a religion? Is my lack of belief in any supernatural phenomenon a religion in and of itself? No, and you would be absurd to say so, because the lack of belief in something does not constitute a belief that something does not exist. They're not the same thing. Maybe an atheist might take the stance that atheists have faith that God doesn't exist, and therefore atheism is a religion, just a counter-religion of sorts. That's pretty presumptuous to say that we atheists have faith, which is, by definition, a belief without evidence, that a God does not exist. And it's presumptuous for two reasons. One, because it's dead wrong. We have sufficient evidence to show that a God either does not exist, or that if a God does exist, then it is not the God of the Bible, based on many logical contradictions, on contradictions in physical reality that we see in testable, observable science. There are just so many things wrong with the God of the Christian Bible that I have covered them in previous videos before, and I will not do so in this video as it will take up way too much time. Secondly, if you are going to make the claim that we believe without evidence that your God doesn't exist, you must be pretty damn confident to show that your God exists. Otherwise, you're essentially making a double-edged sword, because you're pointing out that we atheists are ridiculous for believing without evidence that your God doesn't exist, but at the same time, you would be equally as ridiculous for believing that your God does exist without evidence. In fact, I would think that you are even more ridiculous for believing that your God exists without evidence, because what can be asserted without evidence can be equally dismissed without evidence. You could also say that atheists are almost all metaphysical naturalists, or we almost always accept evolution, or we almost all are advocates of gay rights and gay marriage, and therefore those beliefs constitute a religion. But that's absurd. That would mean that any organization, any group where members share certain similar beliefs or accept certain things are by definition a religion. While it is true that many atheists are people who advocate for gay rights or are in the sciences or accept evolution, having these things in common doesn't make us a religion. Because none of these things have any basis in a supernatural belief. None of these things have a basis in a deity. And none of these things are a requirement to being an atheist. To try and define atheism as a religion really requires you to make some sort of ad hoc redefining of what a religion is and how atheism somehow fits into that new definition of religion. And if a theist doesn't see anything wrong with that, then allow me to ask, if atheism is a religion, what isn't a religion? In short, atheism is as much of a religion as bald being a hair color, non-stamp collecting being a hobby, not smoking being a habit, or off being a television channel. May the truth always be heard.